In slow-mo, Dom looks up as Brian's upside-down car sails over his own. It's super sick! Brian looks back down at Dom. Their heads inches from each other. They crane their necks to steal an upside-down kiss, and Dom's tongue explores Brian's mouth.
What the
Sometimes, fact is stranger than fiction. And sometimes, poetry just writes itself. We'll be taking a look at the colossal failure that is Fast and Furious Crossroads, set to be actively delisted from stores, and asking ourselves how its developer managed to release two massive market flops in the same month. Yes, you heard right. Both of these games were released by the same developer on the exact same month. Let's use this as a case study of how just a few poor management decisions can obliterate a company's good faith with their community. Shout out to my boy Yong Yeah for this one. I was grinning from ear to ear when I saw his video on the topic come up, and my video will be recycling the same themes, though with a decidedly more sim racer / entrepreneurial perspective. If you ever feel the need to ride the hate train and share a few laughs, his channel is the go-to, the critical drinker of video games, as it were. Now, while I've not had the displeasure of playing the game, unlike poor Yong, who apparently streamed much of the experience for his audience entitled, "I beat one of 2020's worst games," I'll be analysing this from a market perspective, much like our last Project Cars 3 retrospective, to again try to work out how a company could fail so badly, not once, but twice, and in such a short span of time to boot. To give you some perspective, the all-time peak player count on Steam for Fast and Furious Crossroads is 52 players. Let me repeat that. The most people that have ever concurrently played Fast and Furious Crossroads on PC is 52, across our whole planet. Population 7.9 billion. Trading on a high-flying brand like Fast and Furious, you would think would justify more novelty purchases by die-hard fans of the series. There had to have been some colossal missteps involved to not even recruit the core fan base of the franchise. This is made even more poignant by the high-flying voice cast of the game, including the likes of Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese Gibson, and Peter Stormare. Given that the Fast and Furious series are some of the highest-grossing box office hits of all time, it's safe to say that this wouldn't have been a low-budget affair. What's wild is that prior to the release of this game and Project Cars 3, the developer, Slightly Mad Studios, were renowned as making relatively commercially successful racing simulators. They didn't really have a pedigree in franchised movie tie-ins or accessible arcade titles, and given what these two games showcased, for apparently very good reason. One thing I used to hear a lot in the music industry is that insert band here, quote-unquote, sold out. As if it's something one can do on a whim and suddenly make a financial windfall the next day. Changing genres or broadening audiences takes finesse and time. You have to balance the expectations of the people who got you to where you are with appeal to the new audience. We're continually made aware of that here on YouTube. If I were to suddenly start posting Minecraft content, the viewership of this channel would plunge to depths as yet unseen by Live for Speed channels. The most I can do is broaden the channel's horizons to borderline sim racing titles such as BeamNG and Gran Turismo 7, and even so it has to be a gradual affair, introduced a bit at a time as to get people comfortable with the idea first. I'm not going to go from R-Factor 2 straight to Unreal Tournament 2004. This applies equally to developers. If you've built an audience of sim racing faithfuls who enjoy real racing with stakes, challenge and consequence, then those people are very unlikely to follow you when you chase the coattails of big-budget movie franchises by developing hasty tie-in games aimed primarily at children. Not to say there's anything wrong with the latter, but it has to be executed with some finesse. Making commercially successful games isn't easy, and requires resources and a proper gameplay arc, something most sim racing developers are woefully under-equipped to execute. Fast and Furious Crossroads showcases this and then some, as it's essentially a collection of go from point A to point B missions interlaced with stunts and action sequences across a vastly empty world. The issue is that these sorts of high-flying, cinematic gameplay arcs don't tend to be the strong suit of racing game developers. People that traditionally focus on racing physics and populating their games with tons of content, with the career mode being a stubby afterthought, are not exactly going to take well to explosive set-piece stunts and arcade gameplay loops, because the inherent reward mechanism that has to be built for the player is completely different. A sim racer gets joy from the simple act of racing, so long as the vehicle, track, and competition are well modeled. A casual gamer needs an entirely different framework where the cars themselves are almost irrelevant. Gran Turismo 7 straddles the borderline of this, combining love of cars and racing with a more traditional collect-em-all progression mechanic, and in spite of its many launch issues, still demonstrates one of the major areas of shortfall for most sim racing developers. It creates a meaningful incentive structure for people to keep racing its events, or at least it will when the rewards finally make sense. Most sim racing titles have no such incentive beyond, here's a new pack of cars or a new laser scan track. Enjoy racing it in the public lobbies for a week until everyone gets bored of it and goes back to racing GT3s at Spa and Monza again. Fast and Furious Crossroads showcases a developer chewing off way more than they can swallow, not to mention across a vastly smaller development timeframe than required to properly upskill into a new genre. This is what can happen when management's ambitions toward broader markets come head-to-head with the company's capability to execute. It also showcases what can happen when a developer entirely abandons its core fanbase to appeal to those new markets without a safety net. Unless the strategy is foolproof, you can fall, and fall hard. This should be used as a lesson by all racing game developers to follow. It's not an overnight quest to create the new Need for Speed franchise. You can't simply secure the license and then assume everything else will fall into place. The general perspective has to be correct. The project management, the staff need familiarity with the genre, and above all, it's going to take time. If you don't have a foothold in the scene, you're going to need to stumble and crash a bit before you hit a home run. You can't bet everything on two quote-unquote sellout titles releasing in the same month and ride the entire company's fortune on it, because if the core fanbase feels abandoned, they will abandon you in return. Though, if any good came of this game, it was in the ceaseless flood of family jokes in YouTube and Steam comments. Family. And so, just 2 years after release, Fast and Furious Crossroads is being pulled from sales platforms entirely, presumably in the hopes of wiping the stain of its embarrassment from the developer's history and mitigate association with that of their new parent company. It just makes you wonder where the hell the perspective was. Subscribe for more racing game industry introspectives, reviews, and probably way too much GT7 content. Until the next one, I'll see you all later.